America did not always care about this game. For most of the last century, football was something that took place somewhere else entirely. Europeans built their lives around it. South Americans treated it like religion. The rest of the world came to a complete stop when a World Cup came around. America put the baseball on. And then something started to move. Not overnight, not because of one thing anyone can point at cleanly. Gradually, across decades, through a long string of moments that on their own did not amount to much and together turned out to mean everything. And by the time the 2026 World Cup landed on American ground, the largest sporting event the planet produces arriving in the one country that had spent the most time not particularly caring about it, something had genuinely shifted. America had fallen for football. And this is what actually got it there. The first thing worth understanding is that America does not take to sports the way most countries do. In most places on Earth, football finds you before you have any say in the matter. Your dad watched it. His dad watched it before him. The first shirt that ever went over your head had a number and a name on it that carried weight you were too young to understand yet. America never had that with football. Football had to work for its place here. It had to go up against sports that had been woven into American life for more than 100 years. Baseball, basketball, American football. These were not just games people played. They were part of the furniture. They had the stadiums, the television money, the cultural gravity that football simply did not have when it arrived. So football started climbing from the very bottom. The 1994 World Cup moved something. America ended up hosting it almost by default. FIFA wanted a country with the stadiums and the financial backing, and the United States had both. And what happened next caught people off guard, including Americans. Matches filled up. Streets came alive. People who had never sat through a full football match in their lives found themselves checking scores and caring about results in ways they had not planned on. The U.S. team made the round of 16. By the standards of world football, that is not a remarkable result. By American standards at that moment, it was significant. A country that had spent years telling itself it was indifferent to this sport watched its national team compete at a World Cup on its own ground and felt something unfamiliar. Something it wanted to feel again. What came after 1994 moved slowly. MLS got going in 1996. The early period was hard work. Crowds were up and down. The level of football on the pitch was not what American sports audiences were used to expecting. But underneath the surface, something was happening that the attendance numbers did not show. Youth football was growing faster than any other sport in the country. Kids who had played in local leagues through the 90s became teenagers who got up early on Saturday mornings to watch the Premier League, became young adults who stayed up for Champions League nights, became the generation that turned up at bars at 7 in the morning for a Manchester derby and packed the place out. Football did not come to America through broadcast rights negotiations or marketing strategies. It came through kids. Through parents who put their children into Saturday morning football because it was affordable and needed less gear than American football, and without realizing it raised a generation that actually gave a damn about the sport. Then the players started arriving. David Beckham came to Los Angeles in 2007, and something opened up that had not been opened before. Not because of what he produced on the pitch, he was past the best of himself by that point and people knew it. Because of what the decision meant. The most recognizable footballer on earth looked at every option available to him and chose America. Chose to come here. Chose to put his name behind making this sport matter in a country that had been told for a long time that football was not really for them. Others came after him, slowly to begin with, then in greater numbers. And when Messi signed for Inter Miami in 2023, the whole conversation changed. Not a great player winding things down somewhere comfortable. The greatest player the sport has ever produced choosing to spend his last years playing in a country that was still in the middle of working out how much it loved what he had dedicated his entire life to. What followed was hard to argue with. Every match sold out. Television numbers hit levels MLS had never seen. A sport that had spent 30 years searching for its American audience found one, and it turned out to be bigger than almost anyone had expected. By the time 2026 came around, America was in a different place to anywhere it had been before. 104 matches, 48 nations, cities right across the country opening their doors to the world. New York, Los Angeles, Dallas, Miami, places that had grown up on completely different sports waking up to find the entire planet had turned up outside. And Americans turned up with them, not playing the role of gracious hosts. As actual fans, people who knew who the players were, who had genuine views on tactical setups, who were ready to argue about referees and squad selections and pressing systems in ways their parents would not have recognized. The sport had done the thing that in 1994 felt like it was probably never going to happen. It had found a real home in America. The story of how it got there is not one story. It is closer to a million. A grandfather who sat in front of a screen for the 1994 World Cup and brought it up with his grandchildren years later. A kid who played every Saturday morning growing up and never actually stopped following the game. A bar that tried putting Premier League football on at 7 in the morning and discovered it could not fit everyone who wanted to watch. A player who picked America when he had plenty of other choices. None of it on its own changed the direction of anything. All of it together changed everything. That is how America got there with football. Not through one moment anyone can point to. Through a whole generation quietly deciding it mattered. If this sport got hold of you somewhere along the way and never really let go, put it below in the comments. And subscribe. Because the story of football in America has not finished yet. New video every single day.